with liberty and justice for all.
Next invocation. Stand if you'd like to and bow with us. You don't have to. Dear Father, we thank you for bringing us here together. We hope that we can make decisions that make you, or for what you want and for the best of the citizens of Shiawassee County. Thank you very much. Amen. I told you it'd be short and sweet. Was not prepared for that either. Roll call, please, Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Root is absent.
He is excused.
Okay, excused. Commissioner McMaster is running late.
Running late, we shall be here.
Commissioner Cascarelli.
Here.
Commissioner Brough.
Here.
Commissioner Marks is excused. Commissioner Holzhausen.
Here.
And Chairman Bartz.
Here. I would accept a motion to approve the minutes of the March 15, 2018 Board of Commissioners meeting.
So moved. Support.
And motion made and supported. Is there any discussion or discrepancies? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Approval of the bills.
I'm on, right? Invoice edit report of March 14, 2018, $399,415. On March 22nd, 2018, bills of $2,033.50. On March 21st, 2018, $52,107.23. On March 26th, 2018, $2,252,925.96. On March 26th, 2018, $920.50. On March 27th, 2018, $337.50. On March 28, 2018, $1,163,633.89. On April 3rd, 2018, amount of $76,945.61. And on March 3rd, 2018, $569,145.18. Total being $4,517,464.37. Wire transfer of March 31st, 2018 of $226,778. The grand total being $4,744,242.37. That concludes my report.
Second on that?
Support.
Motion support to approve the bills. Is there any discussion or discrepancy? Roll call vote, please, Madam Clerk.
Commissioner McMaster.
Yes.
Commissioner Cascarelli.
Yes.
Commissioner Brough.
Yes.
Commissioner Marks is excused. Commissioner Holzhausen.
Yes.
Commissioner Root is excused. And Chairman Bartz.
Yes. Next is the opportunity for the public to address the board. Brad?
Yes. Thanks for having me here. I'm going to pass out kind of my cards here for you guys so you kind of know who I am. You have my contact information going forward. My name is Brad Mazik. I'm a Senior Development Manager for Trade and Energy. We're headquartered out in Lenexa, Kansas, but I'm their Michigan rep. I live over on the west side of the state in the Grand Rapids area. I just kind of want to come and talk to you guys, just provide a little bit of comment. I know 2 weeks ago your planning commission held a meeting over at the Ovid LC High School there, and we were in attendance, and I provided some comments there as well. And we understand the planning commission has been reviewing your county's wind ordinance for a good long time. There's a lot of things that are kind of being discussed there. There's been several open forums for folks to kind of come and present information. one of the things we've noticed is kind of maybe a one-sided kind of argument that's kind of been brought up and voiced there. So folks from the wind industry side, like myself, had not, really had, much time to kind of come and speak. And that's on us to make sure that we're present at those things. But there has been quite a bit of things being talked about that landowners that want to participate with this project have come to us and my colleagues here to kind of say, hey, we're feeling that there is a lot of support here in our local areas, the areas that we're looking for wind. But we're getting drowned out by other voices, and we're coming and trying to come speak at these forums, but it becomes kind of hostile. It's very emotional. A lot of sentiments are coming around. People are getting bullied. Landowners are telling us they're out at a restaurant, their chairs getting kicked because they've signed up. Some of the folks that are opposed to wind have published their names on social media and kind of these things, and it's just been something that is kind of a rough sentiment out there. And folks didn't want to go up to that microphone 2 weeks ago because fear of getting kind of bullied and heckled from folk in the crowd. Now that's something that any kind of controversial issue, you're going to kind of have that. But one of the things that our landowners and participants asked us, like, Brad, can you find a way to demonstrate our support and kind of show other things that you can present to the decision makers here that there is support for a project like this, and our voices, although might be quieter than the folks that are stomping and screaming, they are there, and they're feeling like their property rights aren't being addressed from their perspective as well. So kind of what myself and Tradewind had done earlier this week was just kind of put out just on Facebook. We see a lot of chatter from both sides, on Facebook. We just kind of put a page out there to say, hey, if you are, a fan of wind or not, comment on this page. And essentially the page was kind of up for 24 hours. We wanted to kind of just see kind of what the sentiments were there. It was targeted just for zip codes here in Shiawassee County as well as Saginaw County, because that's where areas that we're looking for. And the sentiments that kind of came back from that was overwhelmingly in support, and a number of 3-to-1 for the pro-wind side. We allowed folks that were opposed to the project to say their piece. Everybody, whether you commented 1 time or 10 times, you got counted once. And we can provide you guys that information. We're going through and trying to kind of geolocate to give you guys a better understanding of kind of where all this is coming. Because we do notice that a lot of folks that when they are talking from the anti-wind perspective, they're folks from Iowa or New York. There's still a lot here in Michigan too, but it does kind of get bounced around. And I know one of the things that gets used against us is that I'm the big wind company, I'm the outsider, and I'm fomenting all this discord in your communities where, from what we see, it's coming a lot from these bullying tactics and these other things are coming from folks that are opposed to it. For whatever their reasons are for opposing to it, that's what we're seeing. So again, I'm here. I want to make sure to provide information, for you all. If you have any, questions on, wind in general, feel free to reach out to me. We've been, coming to the Planning Commission meetings and working through that angle as well. But, just my final message here for you all is the existing wind ordinance that Shiawassee County has on the books right now is a very good ordinance. It was, drafted from the recommendations from the Michigan State University Extension Office. It's in guidelines. It's as good or better with all the guidelines that Michigan State Extension has offered for across the state. Folks that are opposed to wind know how to pick that apart, and they will try to make things and keep moving the ball to a point where a wind project becomes infeasible, regardless of all kinds of the information and the data, that we can provide. They keep moving that ball to make it infeasible. And so just want to kind of draw your attention to that. You guys are the ultimate decision makers. You're here to serve, as you said, the constituents of Shiawassee County. I just want to make sure you're hearing kind of both sides of things and you're making an informed decision. And it just hasn't been from one side that, like I said, is very effective at trying to prove their points to make it sound very reasonable and rational for their belief. But again, their motivations are to prevent wind from happening. And I want to make sure you all have the opportunity to evaluate the opportunity that a wind project brings to your community. So, with that, I'll take any of your questions here. Or
Actually, we can't do that.
Okay, that's fine.
You would have had to been put on the agenda.
Sure.
To talk today, and if you want to do that in the future,
okay,
we can arrange that.
Okay.
But today was public comment, 3 minutes. I let you go over this.
It's,
not a problem.
appreciate that. Yep.
If that's something that you gentlemen want to do, you'll have to call.
Okay.
And get put on the agenda.
Sure. Actually, I saw the public comment. I just wanted to kind of come give my perspective from the meeting that I saw 2 weeks ago. So. Yeah.
Ask a clarifying question?
No.
Okay, and that's fine. Like I said, if you want to, feel free to contact me.
Because we have to, it's gotta be set up different. And
Sure.
we did that, so we get into discussion and it's.
Okay. No, completely understand that, and anytime here in the future, we can go down that avenue as well. So,
If that's something that you want, you just gotta be put on the agenda.
Okay.
And then we can go from there.
great. All right. Well, thank you very much for the time.
You're welcome. Next was Mr. White again.
Hi, good evening. I was here last night. I appreciated the opportunity to talk about the Shiawassee Speedway. I appreciated the discussion and the feedback, and I wanted to again come back tonight. And again, it's really an issue of increasing the awareness and having a discussion that should have happened before this ended up in court. One concern is, another concern is the precedent that's being set with the businesses that come to the different boards or the committees with the explanation that they're in financial distress, so they need to be accommodated. And in this situation, I'm not aware of any proof that was provided. It wasn't part of the discussion. And I think it sets a bad precedence for the board and the other committees in Shiawassee County. I wanted to make reference to yesterday too. The discussion and feedback yesterday, honestly, was I went back through the YouTube copies of the meetings in the past. The discussion yesterday was the most public comment about this issue that I could find on the public record. Again, I wish this would have happened before it ended up in court. In particular, the February meeting for the Econ Committee, I was hoping Mr. Preston would be here tonight. There was a 2-minute discussion about it. Mr. Preston gave a presentation. I appreciated the chairman asking specifically if there were any neighbors that were upset about it, and his reply was that they had had no verifiable complaints. That's code word. When I've called to make a complaint about races going to 1:30 in the morning, the response that I've gotten is that they couldn't verify it. So there's been and it's not just me, it's other neighbors that have complained too. There's obviously no record of it, and I don't know what they do about the record keeping. I appreciate the time to share those additional comments tonight, and I appreciate it.
You gentlemen won't hurt our feelings if you want to leave. You're more than welcome to stay if you want, but I know you came here for a specific reason, and you're more than welcome to stay. I'm not trying to remove you or anything like that, but if you want to leave, that's fine. So.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay. Next is 20. Is it Ventura?
Yeah.
Ventura. Okay.
Good evening, everybody. I don't have to say much because Greg said most of what I wanted to say anyway, so a couple things. We went through this 15 years ago. We thought things are pretty well settled. So like 8 years ago, I had a new house built on my property, which is about a half a mile west of the Speedway. You can bet I wouldn't have had that house built if I knew this was going to happen. Don't need the extra noise, don't need that. I mean, what happened to our original agreement? Why is it being changed? And who's changing it? Or trying to change it, whatever. Don't understand that. I mean, we had a quite number of meetings 15 years ago, thought it was all settled. What happened? Why is it everything changed around? We didn't ask for any changes, I know that. And any of the changes they want is not in our favor. Just don't know what's going on. Why? Like I said, I bought the property about 18 years ago. I knew the track was there, so I expected the noise, you know, some. And at that last, 15 years ago, when we redone everything, it was reasonable. In fact, through the years, I even said a couple of good things about the Speedway. But now, after I built the house there 8 years ago, you're trying to change everything and don't know what's going on. I mean, my son and I hired help. We put in thousands of hours to change my property, 38 acres out there. Got it the way I want for my retirement years. Now this is happening. And anybody tell me why? When we had an agreement.
We can't discuss anything with you today here. If you would like to get on the agenda and like to come up and have time to talk, then we can arrange it. This is just public comment, and we can't get into a discussion or an argument or anything today.
Well, unless somebody's got something to say to me or ask me, that's about it then, I guess, for now. Right? That's it. Thank you.
Yeah. Just for the record, the owner of the Speedway is the one that is asking for changes, and the Board of Commissioners has nothing to do with that. That will be handled in circuit court. So that's for the record. Mr. Dykstra.
Yeah. I just wanted to add a few things to what Brad said. My name's Ryan Dykstra, and I'm with TradeWind as well. I noted some big bills being read off earlier, Mr. Bruff, and there's a lot of farmers in Shiawassee County that are facing big bills too, and of course they've had ups and downs over the years. But one thing that wind energy can do for them, if they choose to participate, is add sort of a steady stream of revenue to their operation. And I want to note that for a wind farm to be successful, we need the vast majority of the land within the footprint that we develop to participate. I mean, this isn't something that we can do with a farm here or a farm there. It really does need to be interconnected, and we would look at participation in the 75 to 90% range as a viable footprint for this. And a lot of times this discussion gets a little bit out of control. I mean, we're talking about a Facebook page that, for instance, the Regulating Wind in Shiawassee has cultivated specifically an environment where folks would have a real hard time expressing a dissenting view. And frankly, it's a closed group. They wouldn't let you in, and they'd kick you out, and they'd censor your comments even if you did. And what that does is sort of agitate folks to get more and more negative. And a lot of these folks are folks that really aren't relevant to the specific footprints that are being developed. And in some case they are. I mean, this is part of looking at each specific area. Owasso Township, for instance, is probably never going to see a wind farm. The areas that we're looking in the northeast part of the county are primarily agricultural, and I think in large part would like that opportunity. And I'd note in sort of closing that in the last 2 years, Gratiot County and Huron County have received a combined $45 million just in the past 2 years from their wind farms. And now granted, they've had a lot of work done over the past decade or so, but that's meaningful stuff, and I would encourage this board to look hard at the actual science and data. And you know, you can say what you want about a wind farm, whether you like it or don't, but it doesn't make the cows stop giving milk. This technology has been deployed tens of thousands of times across the country. Nobody's getting hurt. The civilians aren't getting hurt with wind energy. It's not not any more dangerous than any other sort of electricity generation and production. So the interesting thing about the study that TradeWind sort of took with 24 hours of promoting a pro-wind web page or Facebook page is just the amount of activity. I think it sort of blew us away. We were expecting that we'd have maybe a couple hundred folks, but 968, I think, reactions in a positive way. And there's a sort of a 3-page document describing this study as we get into agenda items and discussing it further. If you'd like some other raw data or pieces of that, we can present that. Am I allowed to distribute that? I'll do that, and then I'll get out of your hair for the evening. Again, I thank you for your time. I know there's probably some folks that wish they didn't have to deal with these sorts of issues. But the more people exist, and I'm not personally on Facebook. I'm one of the minority globally folks that are not.
How's that work?
Oh, thank you. So it's sort of interesting that this would take place as Mark Zuckerberg's on Capitol Hill testifying over the last 2 days. 'Cause I am blown away by the power of this platform, for good or for evil. It just really, there truly seems to be some folks that live on a different plane of existence on this platform. For whatever that's worth, thank you for your time.
Any other calls of the public? Last opportunity for the public to address the board. Committee reports.
Thank you, Doug.
CACS.
Capital Area Community Services, attended a meeting a week and a half ago, probably 2 weeks ago. They just had their audit done, so I actually got there early, so I sat through the finance portion, the auditors were, and then I heard it again during the regular meeting. Absolute clean bill of health. I have copies of the audit if anyone wants to see it, a couple copies of it, but they went through everything. All the numbers match up, everything's being spent properly. So it was good. The new director, so we're a couple months into it. Everything seems to be moving along. There's still a couple lawsuits that are left over from last year that we're kind of waiting to see what happens, but everything's moving along with the Head Start, the commodities program, the utility bill assistance programs, the reading programs, all that stuff. So, all good.
Okay. Community Corrections Advisory Board. GLS Region 5, Commissioner Ruff.
Well, I did go to it, and honestly, I'm not quite sure what they talked about. It kind of went, it was my first meeting, and they meet every other month. They don't meet this month, they met last month. And actually it wasn't a very pleasant experience, I can tell you that. Nobody introduced themselves. They didn't say hi, bye, or boo, or who are you, or anything to me. And I just kind of listened and tried to fumble through it. So I've got a little self-teaching to do before I can. I quite honestly, I didn't understand what in the world they were talking about.
Okay. Mental Health Authority Board. Commissioner Brown.
Yeah. Last month, I think we settled a contract with the union, and they got a little raise, and that was good. This month, we're going to have, we've had a couple of people off the board, so we're going to hire somebody new, and I'm on the committee. That'll be 4 o'clock Monday, and this coming Monday, and then we'll have the finance. I'm on the finance committee, and that's going to move right along. Otherwise, everything's moving along pretty good.
And that's going to be followed by the board.
Yeah.
Board meeting. So Gary's got 3 in a row. I got 2 in a row. So we'll pick up a lot. There isn't anything terribly exciting going on with them up to this point. They did. Well, they did approve, or we're in the process of approving the union contracts, and
Yeah.
and the staff raises and that kind of thing. The union actually failed to complete their work in the time frame that was allotted, but it looks like they're gonna okay a raise for them anyway. They aren't obligated at this point because the union failed to complete the process in a timely manner. So, but they still are gonna. It sounded like they're still gonna get raises. Not a lot, like 2% raises.
Midwest Michigan Authority Board.
I did attend last month's meeting, also assumed secretary duties of that group. We're proceeding, the main topic before the group is looking at as mentioned previously, there's about a 6-mile stretch between Owasso and St. John's, that trail that is failing. After just a couple of years of being installed, there's issues with the substrate, the limestone. So we're working with the DNR, Kent County Road Commission. We're going to deploy some test strips, some fixes, if you will, in a couple of different areas and test those over the course of the season to see what a viable solution may be going forward. How those are paid for will be part of the conversation as well.
I have a quick question, Mr. Chair. Is that, because I went and I walked a portion of that, is it, and I don't know if I was in the failing section or not, is it, the failing section, is it all like contiguous, or is it a little bit here is failing, a little bit here is failing, or, you know?
As I understand it, it's intermittent. It's worse in some areas than others. I have not been on the site myself, so I don't really
I couldn't
know.
find that. They said I went for a walk and I couldn't find where it was, but it's 20 miles of trail, so you know, I only did a little bit, so. Okay, I was curious.
So you don't know,
Maybe someday.
you don't know if they tried to put fabric down or anything? I mean,
They haven't done anything yet. That's what we're working
I
towards.
thought there's been less costly ways to try to repair that than what I've heard so far, but you know, I'm not that involved with it, so I don't know.
Yeah, we have a fair amount of expertise from the Kent County Road Commission and the folks that have built these trails in the past. So I defer largely to their expertise and experience. So that's all I can share.
I've built a lot for the city of Wausau through the years,
But maybe if you want to, maybe you want to come out and have a look.
I think I need a bit of bike to do the whole thing. So, I think the bike's a better route.
The MTA was last week. I was out of state. I did not attend that, so I have nothing to talk about.
I was at MTA, Mark was at MTA, and was Jeremy? Was it at MTA?
Yes, Jeremy was there as well.
Obviously, Harry was there, but we gave a report
Somebody
on,
wants to report on that for me. I appreciate it then.
or we talked about ORVs, had some feedback, talked about wind.
And I talked about the presentation by Jason Horvath and the contingent of lenders and real estate folks that came before the commission to talk about the need for housing stock in the county, pulling together a work group, which we are meeting, I believe, next week on that.
They want to meet on Monday. I can't do
You mentioned I was available, so I haven't checked.
Our presentation, I don't want to say we were the guest speakers, but our presentation kind of turned into the guest speakers of the evening. We actually spoke the most, I think, of anybody there.
How was the ORV ordinance received?
I won't say it was as negative as what it was when I was at Scioto the other night, but even though there was some Scioto, Supervisor Matthews had some questions. I would say it was mostly, there are a lot of questions, there's a lot of unknown. Seemed somewhat positive. But like I said, when I went to Scioto for you the other night, that's when they were kind of hammering me on it. But I think it was, you know, like I said, we talked about wind, just kind of explained the process, what was going on. We talked about the process with ORVs. When you went into detail about the housing market and real estate and all that stuff.
The wind provided an update on some of the changes from the special meeting of the Planning Commission a week and a half ago. Talked about some of those changes that were discussed by the planning commissioners and next steps.
Okay.
Okay. Parks and Recreation, again, was me, and we haven't had a meeting, but we did, the last Parks and Rec, we did talk about the bathroom out of Gecko Park, and that was approved by us and the solid waste committee and everything. So I'm waiting to hear from Rick Crawford. His Parks Excavated donate some labor out there, so I will be doing the excavating, setting the tank in the ground, getting started, and then Rick Crawford is going to get the building put up on it. So I think that's going to probably take place in the next couple of weeks. So probably by June we should have completion on that. That's all pretty much.
Do you know when they're gonna start on Henderson Park? Is that grant, is that for this year or next year?
It's, okay, so
Go ahead, because I'm not sure.
should be doing it right now. Some of the stuff should be done right now, but we're still waiting for some final clearance stuff from the DNR, I believe. And then,
Some of the other stuff is just the way the springs went. It hasn't been, the excavating part and different things.
I was just wondering, because I gotta go to that township meeting tonight, and I was just
I mean,
wondering.
I'll be honest with you, I had hoped by now I had it sprayed down until, but we haven't, nothing's been done yet.
And we're supposed to get just a terrible.
We're supposed to get a ton of rain and snow and stuff, so.
And
Which is fine, I mean, that's, I mean, you know, we can plant in May, we can plant in June, there's water and stuff out there, but,
I just was.
I know, cause I was asked several times, and, I was told there's still some sign-off stuff from the DNR we're waiting on.
Next is public health. Folks, we're not here, solid waste management.
This meeting's not gonna call.
Okay. Council on Aging, Consultant Brock.
They're in the process of doing their audit now. The AAA did theirs and passed with flying colors. Now, I believe we'll probably get a report, weren't they involved in that from the last meeting till now? I think we'll get a report on
Our
their
annual
audit.
meeting's coming up in a couple of weeks, too, or another week.
Right. So that's about all. They had their typical little problems in the three locations, maintenance problems under buildings and roof leaks and minor stuff, but nothing major. They are doing exceptionally well with some of the programs they've implemented. The KISS program is one in particular that I think is really interesting, and I encourage them to distribute their pamphlets as much as they can in the churches. That tends to be where a higher number of elderly people go, and it's geared obviously to elderly people. And it's a really interesting program that consists of basically phone calls, kind of how you doing phone calls, checking on elderly people that maybe shut in, you know. So it's I don't want to go into all the details on it. I just think it's a pretty interesting program. They are coming up with more and more programs all the time. It's becoming extremely popular in the Owasso branch in particular. Lots and lots of people go there all the time.
GST, Michigan Works, Governing Board.
We have not, I believe next week is the next meeting. Since we've had all the snow cancellations and stuff, I believe it's next week. It's either next week or the week after.
Planning Commission.
Planning Commission, sound like a broken record, but,
Can't say it.
probably May 8th is gonna be the public hearing in Wasco Corona. There'll be some more revisions, comes to us the next week. Into our possession, if it gets voted out on the 8th, which I believe is the intention. It'll come to us that next week for our meetings. So we can start looking at it, and then we've got a meeting in June, we can look at it.
You do anticipate a vote?
Oh, they're anxious to hand it up to us, yes. Yes, very anxious.
Where is it at and the time?
What's that?
Where is it at and the time?
No, for sure yet.
Oh. Okay.
You know, well, I mean, we've talked about this, I mean, it's
Owasso High School.
Wasco Corona High School. They're targeting May 8th, but it could be the 9th, it could be the 2nd.
Oh, okay. Cross that out.
So then it would come to us, we're probably going to, and obviously we're gonna need more time than just a couple of meetings look at it, figure out what we wanna do, changes, etc. And we're gonna have to extend the moratorium, I'm guessing, either at our May meeting or our June meeting. And then it's, then we can send it back down to the planning commission, tell them to continue working on it. We could make some changes and send it back to them. We could not make any changes, we could make changes and vote on it, several different options, but,
Guess just get it right the first time. We'll never send it back, we can vote on and be done with it. Whatever.
there's some things that
Whatever that right way is.
I was the only vote for, and I know my vote's probably gonna mirror other people here, so, one is, the height issues, there's setback issues, there's the noise issue, the flicker issues, wildlife issues, setbacks, I mean, there's all sorts of stuff, so that's the,
Four, right? I would say four primary categories that
Yeah.
seem to be the sticking point.
yeah.
One
Yeah.
other observation in attending that special meeting of the planning commission, several questions arose to how the different townships
Right.
responded to the different.
So they're supposed to put, the peace office is supposed to put together a spreadsheet of all the townships. Now see, this is where it gets, and you can't believe everything that's told in the audience, because some townships didn't make recommendations. Some townships didn't respond, some responded, did make recommendations, and then the recommendations are all over. Somebody said, well, all the townships said 400% for a setback, which isn't true. So they're gonna put together the chart of all the townships, those 4 or 5 sticking issue points that we talk about.
Ones that keep
and
coming up.
and what each one had. I requested of the wind energy company, which I didn't obviously ask them tonight, but they're supposed to put together some kind of diagram to show us, based on height, based on different height variables and setbacks and noise and that stuff, what it would look like an 80-acre parcel or a 160 parcel or a couple parcels that are participating, that are kind of put together, what that would look like. Like, if you have 160, does that mean you only have one windmill in the middle, one turbine? You have a cluster of 3 or 4 of them, based on setbacks. I mean, with what we passed with the height and setback, you can't put it on a 40. Depending on what the 80 looks like, you might not be able to put it on an 80. So they're supposed to come with that. So that should help us a little bit visually when we're talking feet and 100, 200, 300, 400% setbacks. It's going to help to have a piece of paper that says, okay, this is a 40-acre farm, this is an 80-acre farm, this is a 641 section. How many can they, based on height and setbacks? I think we get a better idea of what this would look like.
Yeah, but sometimes if there's 2, 3 or 4, 40 acres all together, so the setback would be a lot different. If they're all connected and all participate.
And that's true, and that's why it isn't necessarily a 120-acre farm, but it's a 120-acre footprint or whatever. And I just kind of want to have an idea of what is that going to look like. So they're supposed to be. They said at our planning commission 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago, they said they would be working on that. Pete's office would be working on that spreadsheet. But the planning commission has had this for 1.5 years, and they are, in their minds, ready. They're just about set, and they're ready to hand it off. Of course, I'm the new one on the planning commission, and I don't agree with everything that they're doing or what they have, but so.
And there isn't total agreement on the planning commission.
No,
excluding
no,
you
no.
take the other 5.
There's some-
They're not all agreeing either.
No.
Necessarily.
So that's the big part of the planning commission. Obviously, there's other stuff that's been rolling through that we've been approving, and I think the last planning commission we talked about a dog kennel down in Antrim Township, Burns Township, I think. And so outside of the normal zoning people asking for stuff. Wind energy's obviously the big one.
And that isn't on the agenda for this month's.
But that is not right. That will not be on the agenda for the next planning commission meeting, but it will, but then a week later, we will have the public hearing again. And I like before, I encourage, I mean, I know several of you were there, I encourage you to attend and watch it and hear it and see democracy in action.
I think, I would suggest to Chairman Bart that you strongly encourage all of us to attend. It's eye-opening experience, you know, you hear it firsthand and you see it, and they had a lot of slide stuff, and it was interesting, and it actually was a pretty balanced, I thought.
I thought
I don't
it was,
think he agreed, he didn't agree with that, but I thought it was pretty well balanced, and you got both sides, and it was informative. And for us to make an educated decision, we need to know almost as much as the planning commission knows, because we're voting on the same thing that they're voting on, so we should be up to speed.
you know, I would say that, not to dwell on this too much, but both sides would say, the industry side and the no side,
Back and forth.
it was back and forth.
Fairly even.
I'm really gonna do some polling, because I'm just really curious. We keep hearing about the silent majority, the loud minority. I think I'm gonna do some polling to find out up in that area, and not countywide what the opinion is, but just up in that area
And I think
where people
that was
are.
an interesting point that the gentleman made. You know, he said, "Oh, it was, what did he say, 3 to 1?"
Yeah.
But if you isolate, not all the county is affected by this. I mean, they're not even included as far as potentially having a wind farm in their township or even their district. We're talking about 2 general districts in the northwest and the northeast. I think if you isolated that, I don't think it'd be a 3 to 1 in favor of it. I think the people that aren't gonna have one in their backyard are probably saying, yeah, cool, sounds like a lot of money, we'll do good.
Somehow it all has to be tied into the grid system, so.
Right, and that's why it's in that
understandable why
area.
it can't be.
Right.
But I'm just curious. I mean, like I said, I think I'm gonna do some polling, find out, is it a silent majority, is it a loud minority? I mean, you can't go by Facebook. I mean, I might show something, but it was one day, it was 24 hours, and we all know you can run any kind of numbers that you want up on an internet.
You can slant your questions.
Yeah. But
You could call and tell them you're gonna put it in your backyard, I think that.
Yeah.
Well,
If you vote in favor of this, we're gonna come and talk to you.
Well, I hope all you gentlemen understand why we couldn't get into a debate here today.
no.
Yeah.
Oh, I know.
Because then.
We should.
And then the other side's gonna say,
Because
well,
then
we
next,
weren't there.
right, but then next month they would come, the other side would come,
Yeah.
just under 3-minute public comment or 5-minute public comment, and they would wanna have their debate. We're
No,
not at the point to get into that.
I would say
so-
there's, just to kind of wrap up the planning commission wind thing, there's 2 frustrating things. One is the failure, people don't understand that we're not voting yes or no to allow wind turbines, we're rewriting an ordinance. And the second is, there's 3 groups. There's the pro group, there's the group that can live with it with some restrictions, and there's the zero tolerance group. And there's no negotiating with the zero tolerance group, and it's just, you just can't sit everyone down and try to work it out. I mean, it's just, there's some people that say absolutely zero. Well, what's acceptable? 0. Can't do that, so. But you'll see that, and you'll see at the next public hearing, there's people that fit into all those 3 categories. So that's it for planning commission.
Okay. Next, committee of the whole. I'm not sure who the vice chairman of that is either. Is that you, Dan?
I would I'd like to move that we approve the minutes of the April 11, 2018 committee of the whole meeting.
Support.
Motion and support. Is there any discussion or discrepancy? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Okay.
Okay.
Economic and physical development, Commissioner McMaster.
Mr. Chairman, item A, I move to accept and place on file the Shiawassee County Register of Deeds 2017 annual report.
Support.
Motion and support. Is there any discussion? I don't believe this needs a roll call, so all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I think we gotta have a roll call on that. We always have.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Roll call vote, Madam Clerk. I wasn't sure, Commissioner Holmes,
I thought anytime I've been here and all those. we
Okay.
had it.
That's fine.
Commissioner Cascarelli,
Yes.
Commissioner Brock,
Yes.
Commissioner Marks is excused, Commissioner Olshausen,
Yes.
Commissioner Root is excused, Commissioner McMaster,
Yes.
and Chairman Barnes.
Yes.
Okay, item B, I move to approve resolution number 18-04-01 for adoption of county equalization values for 2018 and authorize the board chair to execute all necessary documents.
Support.
Motion and support. Is there any discussion? We'll do a roll call vote again. Please, Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Brock,
Yes.
Commissioner Marks is excused, Commissioner Olshausen,
Yes.
Commissioner Root is excused, Commissioner McMaster,
Yes.
Commissioner Cascarelli,
Yes.
Chairman Barnes.
Yes.
Item C, I move to approve the total equalized valuations Form L-4024 and finalize equalized valuations by local jurisdiction Form 4037 and authorize the board chair to execute all necessary documents.
Support.
Motion and support. Is there any discussion? Roll call vote again, please.
Commissioner Marks is excused, Commissioner Olshausen,
Yes.
Commissioner Root is excused, Commissioner McMaster,
Yes.
Commissioner Cascarelli,
Yes.
Commissioner Brock,
Yes.
Chairman Barnes.
Yes.
Item D, move to approve revisions to the building and trades inspector contracts, including previous approval of fee per inspection and in addition of requirement for contractor liability coverage.
Support. Motion and support. Is there any discussion? Roll call vote again, please.
Commissioner Olshausen,
Yes.
Commissioner Root is excused, Commissioner McMaster,
Yes.
Commissioner Cascarelli,
Yes.
Commissioner Brock,
Yes.
Commissioner Marks is excused, and Chairman Barnes.
Yes.
Item E, I move resolution number 18-04-0, approve amendments to Article 4, Section 4.3.28 and Article 21, Section 21.2 of the county ordinances to allow the planning commission to waive certain specific requirements pertaining to a historical facility or old-style wooden barn when applied to similar established uses such as greenhouses, nurseries, and so forth.
Support.
Motion and support. Is there any discussion? I don't believe we need a roll call vote on this. So all in favor of moving this forward, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, this is an ordinance amendment.
So I do.
The union will, it's actually took the form of a resolution here, but you're amending an ordinance.
Once again, I'm wrong. I apologize. Roll call vote.
Commissioner Root is excused, Commissioner McMaster,
Yes.
Commissioner Cascarelli,
Yes.
Commissioner Brock,
Yes.
Commissioner Marks is excused, Commissioner Olshausen,
Yes.
Chairman Barnes.
Yes.
Item F, I move to approve the minutes of the April 9, 2018 Economic and Physical Development Committee meeting.
Support.
Motion and support. And I know I don't need a roll call on this. All in favor? Any discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, Mr. Chair, County Finance and Administration, item A, move to authorize the youth center to hire a part-time youth specialist, salary YS grade 1, 10.19 to 11.29 per hour for up to 19 hours per week to fill the vacancies starting 10.19 to 10.69 per hour.
Support.
Motion support, is there any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner McMaster,
Yes.
Commissioner Cascarelli,
Yes.
Commissioner Brough,
Yes.
Commissioner Marks is excused, Commissioner Olshausen,
Yes.
Commissioner Root is excused, and Chairman Barnes.
Yes.
Item B, I move to authorize the Veteran Affairs Office to hire a part-time travel coordinator, salary grade 1, $12.30 to $16 per hour for up to 19 hours per week to fill a vacancy, starting at $12.30 per hour.
Support.
Motion and support, is there any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Cascarelli,
Yes.
Commissioner Brough,
Yes.
Commissioner Marks is excused, Commissioner Olshausen,
Yes.
Commissioner Root is excused, Commissioner McMaster,
Yes.
Chairman Barnes.
Yes.
Item C, I move to authorize the Department of Veteran Affairs to create a line item for Transportation Solutions in Fund 291 Veteran Services Program. This new line item will designate $14,000 of current monies for use of Transportation Solutions when needed.
Support.
Motion and support, any discussion? Roll call vote, please, Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Brough,
Yes.
Commissioner Marks is excused, Commissioner Olshausen,
Yes.
Commissioner Root is excused, Commissioner McMaster,
Yes.
Commissioner Cascarelli,
Yes.
Chairman Barnes.
Yes.
Item D, I move to adopt the proposed Shiawassee County procurement policies and procedures.
Support.
Any discussion on this? Roll call vote.
Commissioner Marks is excused, Commissioner Olshausen,
Yes.
Commissioner Root is excused, Commissioner McMaster,
Yes.
Commissioner Cascarelli,
Yes.
Commissioner Brough,
Yes.
Chairman Barnes.
Yes.
Item E, move to approve budget amendment number 18-04 to fund the Veterans Transportation ineligible for PA 214 funds out of fund balances in excess of $75,000.
Support.
Motion and support, is there any discussion?
I don't know if this is the right place or not, or if it's under the next item, but did we get an answer about the van? I know we talked about it a couple days ago.
Commissioner Marks asked me to inquire into that, and the answer is, yes, they intend to have two vans. And in fact, when the current one reaches its maximum point, they'll be seeking to replace that one so that they
So
continue
the
to have
number's
two.
not true. Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion on item E, under county finance? Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Olshausen,
Yes.
Commissioner Root is excused, Commissioner McMaster,
Yes.
Commissioner Cascarelli,
Yes.
Commissioner Brough,
Yes.
Commissioner Marks is excused, Chairman Barnes.
Yes.
Okay, item F, I move to approve the minutes of the April 9, 2018 Finance and Admin Committee meeting.
Support. Motion support, any discussion or discrepancies? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed? Carries.
Mr. Chairman, that completes my report.
Thank you, Commissioner Masters. Public Safety and Courts, Commissioner Casarelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item A, committee moves to authorize the renewal of the current contract with Concierge Corrections and Asset Recovery Service. This service processes off-site medical claims to assure the responsible party is billed as applicable, such as outside insurances.
Support.
Motion and support, is there any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Root is excused, Commissioner McMaster,
Yes.
Commissioner Cascarelli,
Yes.
Commissioner Brough,
Yes.
Commissioner Marks is excused, Commissioner Olshausen,
Yes.
Chairman Barnes.
Yes. Motion carries.
Item B, move to approve the purchase of the MBVO Mobile 911 solution from InDigital in the amount of $5,464.67.
Support.
Motion and support, is there any discussion? Roll call vote.
Commissioner McMaster,
Yes.
Commissioner Cascarelli,
Yes.
Commissioner Brough,
Yes.
Commissioner Marks is excused, Commissioner Olshausen,
Yes.
Commissioner Root is excused, Chairman Barnes.
Yes. Motion carries.
Item C, move to authorize an upgrade to the current jail camera system by utilizing Advanced Satellite Communications Incorporated, ACS security systems, which would cost the jail $32,420.26, to be partially funded by the Michigan Municipal Risk Management Authority by a grant received of $12,845.78. The balance would be paid from the jail's commissary trust fund.
Support.
Motion and support, is there any discussion?
Hopefully this ends the flooding.
Roll call vote, please, Madam Clerk.
At least we'll know.
Commissioner Cascarelli?
Yes.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Marks is excused. Commissioner Holzhausen?
Yes.
Commissioner Root is excused. Commissioner McMaster?
Yes.
Chairman Barnes?
Yes. Motion carries.
And final item D, I move to approve the minutes of the April 10th, 2018 Public Safety and Courts Committee.
Motion and support, is there any discussion or discrepancies? None, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That concludes my report.
That's really Health and Human Services, Commissioner Root, so the vice chair of that is,
I believe it's Brandon.
I think it is.
I'm happy to do it.
It is.
Well, it says on
it
that
is-
committee, who's the third one on that committee?
It's, Jeremy Root, Brandon Marks. Mark Cascarelli.
So it's Mark's.
Item A, move to reappoint Vicki Schultz to Mid-State Health Network Substance Use Disorder Oversight Policy Advisory Board of Directors for a 3-year term expiring on December 31st of 2020.
Support.
motion and support, is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries.
Item B, I move to authorize the Health Department to hire an administrative assistant, environmental health at salary grade 3, $28,912 to $37,564 to fill a vacancy, starting at $28,912 to a range up to $31,075.
Support.
Motion and support, is there any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Marks is excused. Commissioner Holzhausen?
Yes.
Commissioner Root is excused. Commissioner McMaster?
Yes.
Commissioner Cascarelli?
Yes.
Chairman Barnes?
Yes. Motion carries.
And finally, I move to approve the minutes of the April 10th, 2018 Health and Human Services Committee meeting.
Support.
Support, is there any discussion or discrepancies? None, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries.
Thank you. Just a clarification. I blanked there. I was confusing that committee with the Health Committee in Larry Shop, which is served on or represented by Jeremy and Brandon. So, anyway, that concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, Mrs. Chairperson, just a couple things I want to go over. So you guys, there is a meeting coming up next week sometime. You haven't set a date yet, just because of scheduling conflicts of what we're doing as far as the home builders and the realtors association.
Yeah, Justin and Jerry Meyer wanted to meet on Monday at 5, I believe. And that's, actually, I have 2 back-to-back meetings at 4:30 and 5:30 that day, so I'm not able to go, but.
Yeah, I saw an email from Justin, and I told him I was available, and he said, great, but I'm not sure if that confirms the meeting's happening or not.
So I guess, I mean, even if just one of you can make it, if that's what we need to do.
I'm available on Monday.
It's hard to get everybody to
Sure.
show. The other thing is.
My only concern with that is, those are the same 2 gentlemen that presented, I've already heard their side. My interest, I think they're isolating the issue to land splits. I think there's a lot more issues to be discussed. I think we need contractors involved in this, and, you know, I don't want to be dominated by those 2, because their agenda is land splits. I don't think that's the solution. I would like to get Pete more involved. I would like to get other contractors involved. So I'm not avoiding that meeting. I truly do have 2 other meetings. So does Gary. Gary and I are on the same So I'm not trying to avoid it, but I don't want this to be a Jerry Meyer, Justin Horvath committee.
I concur with Commissioner Brock. That's part of my interest in wanting to attend. My background on the Township Planning Commission and the history of land splits and why the ordinance is as it is today, but also focusing on streamlining, administrative procedures, red tape, opportunities for refurbishing blighted neighborhoods, cluster developments, site condo developments, a long list of things that we might be looking at with respect to increasing the housing stock here in Shiawassee County. It's not the path of least resistance to start, opening up the floodgates of land splits, across the landscape.
So it's not going to
Empty, so one thing you talk about the empty subdivisions.
Empty
we have that.
subdivisions is another.
And I agree with you guys. I believe there has to be some tape tightened up, cleaned up, cut to take care of some of them issues. But I believe, as a contractor here in Shiawassee County, and this may be my own personal belief, but I feel that the biggest problem here is there is land out there to build on. The biggest problem that I see that we have, talking with other contractors, and that is the lack of contractors, building contractors, that can come in and build affordable housing. I mean, there's contractors out there that will come in and build $200,000 and $350,000 houses, but we need somebody, contractors, and the availability to buy land and put up houses that are affordable to residents of Shiawassee County. And I'm not, we're in the $150,000 to $200,000 range is what most residents in this county have income to be able to afford. And
it's interesting you mentioned that, because I haven't heard of any bidding wars of $300,000, $400,000, or $500,000 houses. I've heard of these bidding wars, and I mean, this is your industry, but at least in my experience in the city of Wausau, of $75,000 to $100,000 homes that are going anywhere from $30,000, $40,000 off the list price. That seems to be, I mean, not everyone who comes out here is looking, like you said, is looking to build a $300,000 to $400,000 home. They're looking for the affordable 100 or 125 in there.
They want a nice, affordable, 3-bedroom, 2-bath home.
And Mike can attest to this too. The houses, right now, Shiawassee County, there's definitely a lack of houses. The inventory, I was talking with Lance Omer this morning, typically 300-400 houses on the market, and we're down to like 150 houses. The houses that are in the $120,000 range, sometimes people barely get the sign drug into the ground, and they're sold. The more expensive houses are, we just don't have the.
Yeah, the expensive ones are sitting a little longer.
Yeah.
The 250 and up, they're sitting, and you'll see those signs up there.
And the repos and the rehabs and stuff like that they've been pretty much cleaned up and swiped up off the market.
There's another wave coming, by the way, but right now there aren't a lot of foreclosures out there, but there is a huge wave coming again.
So to just end this, keep it short, I understand what you gentlemen are saying, but the Board of Commissioners, we just have to look at what we can do as a group to be able to make housing.
We can't force contractors to.
Right.
Sure.
We have to have housing, and if things keep going, we need places for people to live.
And just related to this, I did attend Perry Township meeting last week, and Justin Horvath was there, and this subject came up. And we heard from a couple of board members saying there would be strong opposition at the township level for streamlining splits there. And that was the other point I made. This should really be a bottom-up approach, and it ought to be, reviewed, and townships be allowed to comment on any proposals, not just this top-down from Corona across the county. It should be.
I think you find a lot of townships that are going to agree with Perry.
That's right. And that's why I'm hesitant to continue to meet with just Jerry and Justin, because that's their agenda. And it's like, talk to the townships.
And we'll see
I
where
do
it
too,
goes.
But then after that, we
but
just
talk to
get
the
back with
townships.
me, we'll make adjustments, and we'll have to
Talk to us. We're not going to change the townships.
So the next thing, I didn't hear back from the sheriff today, but I am going to push very, very hard, myself and their coordinator, to get this face value warrant situation straightened out before next month. So
I did speak with him, and I don't know all the called Lean, find out some information, and it sounds like if we wanna bring somebody from Lean out here to discuss this, or work on this, as to come with a request to the court. That's the only recent development I heard today.
Okay, well, we'll
But
check into
it's
that.
another piece of the puzzle, so.
Kind of hesitant on how the media, the other media handle that. The thing they put in the paper today, because it kind of acted like we're shoving the blame off on an unknown source, and I don't think that's the case. We just need to work through this as a group and get it figured out, so.
We'll just try to next week, maybe get some of us together for a meeting and the parties and see what happens.
Other than that, under chairman, I think something I'm gonna add by next month's agenda, but, Mike, do you have anything that you'd like to add? Things that you've been working on, can you kind of maybe, don't wanna put you in the spot, but maybe a slight update of what you've been working on, maybe what you're,
Well, and we were at the
Things we discussed.
leadership council, and there's a lot of issues with AVP. As you know, we had a pre-audit review by SK&T. We have a number of discrepancies in the numbers. So we're gonna have to check on those. Without going into it any more than that on that. And of course, we're gonna look at, we're checking some other counties on the ordinance for next month or June, yeah. The idea is we'll have an ordinance.
I'd like to have something by June on that, so it's getting to be the season that, I know there's some people that are against it, but everywhere I go, I get a lot of positive.
The only place that I've gotten, or I've heard, was the Scioto group, which is interesting because, as I've shared, many of those individuals in the audience drive up and down Bennington Road with their ORVs, so. But that's the only concentrated group that I've heard such strong opposition from. I don't know, we gotta figure it out, so.
Is there any other business?
I think you have some other business here.
Okay, go ahead, Mike.
Well, under other agenda.
Yeah, we got a couple.
But,
Oh, yeah, I mean, I know that.
Mr. Chair, if I could just add something kind of under your comments. Yesterday, I attended drug court. I went to the pre-meeting, so I had to sign a confidentiality agreement, and then I went to drug court. Highly encourage any of you who have not done this, have not witnessed drug court, to get with Chrissy or Judge Stewart and try, it's Wednesday. Pre-meeting starts at like 2 or 2:30, drug court starts at 4. So I was a couple minutes late yesterday because it ran over a little past 5, but it's usually 4 to 5 on Wednesdays, but if you guys can, it's very eye-opening. So.
Is there any other business that any of you commissioners feel that I need to, myself or our coordinator need to be looking into?
Yes. If you put it that way, yes.
Yeah, well,
Or I can wait till other agenda items.
Well, it's just, we need to discuss it, so get it out.
Well, I'm gonna wrap up my rant. I'm not finished, especially in light of the electrical inspector yesterday and his report. And again, it goes back to an isolated situation, but I don't believe it's isolated. But I'm speaking of the air conditioning. He reported to us. He's the authority on this. He's the city inspector. He said 1 permit was pulled, 8 should have been pulled. There was never a request for the final inspection, and I'm assuming that the contractor was paid. Now, we have said here that should not happen. I'm proposing that never happen again. I don't know how we can enforce that, but that should never, ever, ever happen, that a contractor is paid that is doing work that requires a permit, that requires a final inspection. We should never give them a check. It sounds like this particular contractor was paid because there was never a final inspection, and that's been long done and gone, and I'm sure he's cashed that check. Here's my proposal. Well, that's number one. That should, and I'm not quite sure the procedure, when we're voting on policy and procedural, I don't know if it falls under that, we just approve procurement policies and procedures. I don't know, does it fall into that, procedures? then I would like to, if that's the place, then I would like to see an amendment done that if it isn't in there, that needs to be put in there. My other concern is this particular contractor in question has done a lot of work for the county. This guy is not a stranger to procedure. I, for one, I am really hot on this issue, and I, for one, this contractor and all the contractors, we tend to use the same contractors over and over and over. They know the system, they know the proper procedure. That doesn't mean they follow it. And in this case, it does not sound like he followed it at all, took full advantage of it, got paid a large sum of money to walk away with a check in his pocket without a final inspection. To me, that's just blatant abuse. And whatever it takes, whether it takes a motion, a proposal, an amendment, whatever you want to call it, I would like to propose that this particular contractor knows better, knew better, and most likely, but not assuredly, has pulled this before. I would like to see him removed from any future contract bids for the county. That's how strongly I feel about this. There may be other ones there. This is the one that I'm aware of at this point. We had testimony right before us that no final inspection was requested. Now, my understanding is this gentleman may or may not have said, you know, well, hey, they never called me and told me they needed to do a final inspection. Sorry, it's the contractor's responsibility. It's in the contract, it should be in the contract. If it isn't, contractors know when they're doing the work, they bid a job, they pull the permits, they follow up, they request, they tell the inspector when they're done and when the final inspection has to be done. For that reason, I would like to see, however it needs to be done, whether we need to vote on it next month, I'll be going next year, but I feel that strongly about it. He violated it, he violated the procedure, he got away with it. I don't see why we should ever let another contractor get away with that again.
Well,
And we need to make a statement. That's how strong I feel. And if it, you know, if it feels like we're picking on this one guy, well, so be it. But we need to send a message to contractors that work for the county. You know, we're not pushovers. You can't skip steps, and you gotta give us what you're getting paid for. You know, and so, all right, I'm done. That's what I had to say.
And again, I've said this before, I was in charge of buildings and grounds last year.
I'm not blaming you.
Well,
You're
I'm
not
taking some of
responsible.
the blame. I
He knows the
approved the
procedure.
work, I never did see the contract, our buildings and grounds.
Well, we all voted
We
on it.
need, yes, and that's where I'm at, but I was in charge of buildings and grounds. We just need to make sure, we need to have a talk with our buildings and grounds supervisor and make him well aware of where the Board of Commissioners stands on this, and that if it happens again, you know, I don't know that we can do a whole lot now, but if it happens again, that there will be repercussions.
Well,
to
we know
some
what
degree.
happened with this particular contract and this contractor. So I think we can do something about that. But
That's why I was clarifying yesterday.
I'm not going
where
back
do you,
years.
where do you draw the line? You know what I mean?
I know.
If it's our buildings and grounds employees working at the jail and stuff, then I think we're okay. But anytime that we have a licensed contractor
Right.
come in here, then I think we need to at least ask if a permit is needed, so.
Well, and my thinking of that is any professional contractor that's doing jobs of this magnitude, they know the procedures.
Right.
They know, we don't.
I agree.
We're
totally
not
with that.
educated in that. I'm not a licensed contractor. I'm not an inspector. I don't know that. But we hire licensed contractors that are professional, supposed to be professional, and follow procedures. They know what they have to ask for. They also may know what they might get away with, but they know proper procedure. And any contractor I've ever used follows those procedures. I won't use some less than professional contractor ever. You know, there's rules you gotta follow, and we all have to follow them. The public has to follow them. We need to follow them, and the contractors that we hire need to follow them. And That's where I'm putting the blame, not on you, not on us. We voted in good conscience, you know, based on bids and all this. We did our part. I don't believe the contractor did his part in this case. And I don't think there's any excuse for that. And I don't think it should be ever allowed again, at least from this contractor. Well, never from any contractor, but I don't believe this contractor knows better. I don't believe we need to give them another opportunity to bid another job for the county. That's how strongly I feel. Y'all do what you want to do with that. And if I have to make a motion, I doubt if I get support for it tonight, but I think it's something we strongly need to think about, and we need to send a message. We need to be firm. We need to know what we're talking about. Too many times, things get swept under the rug. Now, we talk about it, we get fired up about it, and then nobody hears about it again. I would like to make a statement, and that statement is, this contract is off the list.
Jeff,
Sorry, Gary.
who's supposed to check it when we hire it? Is it up to Tim to kind of check that too?
It should have
So he kind of overlooked it, so
Tim
he's got,
overlooked it,
the
yeah.
contractor's on 100%. The way I see it, I mean,
They're the
whoever
ones that-
hires it,
Well, I agree, as a
I mean,
contractor,
Tim-
I know what jobs when I need permits and when I don't need permits, and I agree that our electrical or HVAC contractor should have known that he needed a permit on that.
yeah, but who
Whether there
knows?
was even money in the bid to
Who
give him,
checks that?
Tim should have checked it.
Well, I can tell you, the procurement policy has the county coordinator, or the chief, whoever the chief administrative officer is, oversees contracts being performed, but we didn't have them.
Right. So the next time it happens, we're gonna blame it on Mike.
Yeah, right.
So-
Fine.
I didn't want to say it.
At
At least I wasn't here at that time.
And I agree totally with that. The lack of a coordinator / administrator
Exactly.
in this capacity has let a lot of things slip by
I agree.
this county in the last 4 years that I do not want to see happen anymore. And that's why I so strongly helped and wanted you gentlemen and all of us to support a coordinator and somebody looking over these kind of things. Because this is the exact kind of things that happens
I agree.
when you don't have somebody watching over the
And when you,
Yeah,
and
we
when you
don't know
have
who
an
did
individual.
interior work anyway.
Right, because it never was inspected. So, I would think maybe we should at least talk to the city of Corona and have them go up there and do an inspection, and if there's things wrong, that we need to possibly go back on the contractor.
Which that contractor, my understanding is, may or may not correct the problem.
Well, if he didn't, then he would not be allowed to ever work for us again.
I wouldn't give him that option.
Is it still in business?
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
Shoot, yes.
Okay, so all along those lines of codes and inspections and everything. And I don't know if this falls on us or this falls on the state of Michigan, but all of our elevators are out of inspection. The public's obviously recognizing this, they're calling grounds and maintenance. Because grounds and maintenance has put a little note on this elevator saying, do not call us, this isn't our responsibility. So, what's the story? Do we call the state and say, or if something happens, it's the state's fault because they didn't?
Well, they have a maintenance contract usually on elevators.
Is that something we have to have Mike look into also?
Is it, and maybe it is, maybe it's the maintenance, I have no idea, maintenance contract, I don't know.
All the elevators have maintenance contracts on them usually.
Okay, well,
Don't.
so something's,
Huh?
I don't know what they do.
Well,
well,
they used to.
we're like a year past,
We got
It's like
pretty
that
old
every year.
elevators.
I'm sorry, can I say something? It's like that
You
every
may.
year.
please,
There's
'cause
a
I,
division, and the number is on there, and you can call them, and they will tell you, we'll get to it when we get to it.
so what happens if something happens, it's not our fault then, or? What happens when
I
it's
mean, that's a great
We
question.
do have
so you
governmental
call
immunity.
them, because
Because
every
they-
year.
and we do have
every
governmental
department
immunity.
gets one a year.
So you-
But there's a public buildings exception, so.
I mean, what, I mean,
there's
clearly the public's recognizing, and somebody from grounds of maintenance is like, stop calling
This is
us,
something
so.
else we just have to follow up.
I'm sure Tim knows it and has a certified inspector come and inspect it or fix the elevators.
I'm not so
99%
sure because
sure.
that note says, leave us alone, do not call
It's
us.
through the state. It's through the state.
Yeah, there's state
It's the state
inspections,
that comes out and
and
does
they
it.
don't come out regularly. I mean, There's a date at which the inspection expires, but they don't have enough inspectors to keep inspecting.
Well, that's two things, Commissioner Olshausen. Will you sit down with Tim and go over them two things? Actually, number one, what's going on with the elevators, and report back to us next month. And number two, what we are doing about permits when we do work. He has to understand. What's that?
Spend a lot of money. They're very expensive repairs. Sometimes they have to be redone, and they're outrageously expensive. The other thing is, they have if the inspector ever does bring one out and says you can't use that elevator, you got real problems, because you gotta have access to the courts.
Well, especially with veterans, when we have disabled veterans that are going up to get
That's
services.
No, all these things, that's
Oh,
right.
yeah.
Yeah, we're required as in public buildings to have access to.
I saw that one, so when I've been in the other buildings, I've been looking, and they're all,
Okay.
so, but anyways, let's move on.
Let's get back on track. Is there any other business items that need to be brought to our attention so that we can start thinking about how we're gonna handle it? If not, we're gonna go to other agenda items. I would make a motion to approve prospective letter of understanding regarding accrual and reimbursement of unused vacation time in the Circuit Court Employees Collective Bargaining Agreement.
You have this in front of you. This is a draft.
Support.
Well,
Hang on.
okay.
Support. All right,
All right.
discussion, please.
You have this in front of you. This is a draft. It would not take effect until it was signed by not only approved by the Board of Commissioners, but it also would have to be signed by Chief Judge Clarkson and Jill Roos, the president of the Circuit Court Employees Association. What I think needs to be done tonight is it what?
I can't see you, so I'm standing up.
Oh.
That's fine, that's fine. I
What,
don't know if we get ready to speak or something.
I think
If you and Jim want to come up here and sit.
I think what would be best for tonight is if the Board of Commissioners would approve it in draft form. Substantively, it is laid out what in fact is required in the Circuit Court employees contract. The actual practice they have is different than that, but it has developed over a number of years, and I would say with the acquiescence of the employer, these whatever ones were turned in, they were turned into the county clerk, and by the county clerk I mean the previous county clerk, Ms. Braid, and has continued to the present day. Therefore, even though we need to bring the practice into compliance with the contract, there needs to be a transitional period where they continue the current practice, because you have employees that have come to rely upon that and have probably used and accrued vacation time in reliance upon it. So, and you can see that that's addressed.
I don't know if anyone else, I don't have a copy.
Sure, it's a draft.
This draft done.
No.
Did you get that?
I don't have one.
I think they're laying up there, commissioners.
It doesn't mean nothing. What's it say? When you get it all done,
You can have mine.
that's what we want to know.
All right.
We're talking about all this stuff in here, so.
Yeah.
So what's the program?
Here's what's supposed to happen. It's pretty good. For the non-represented employees, of course, they don't get intermittent payoffs. They get a payoff when they separate from employment, and there's a limit on it and so forth, but they don't get it as they go. This particular contract calls for payments along the way for unused sick time. As I read it, its purpose was twofold. Part of it was to avoid large accruals, and then from year to year, because the courts have needs, and it's tough once employees start accruing a lot of hours as they get farther into their seniority, to accommodate all vacations. So there's not much provision for rollover, And the trade-off is that they get some payment along the way. The way it's written, if examined, would pretty much permit, which, nothing wrong with this, would permit the circuit court employees who are in the association, it wouldn't apply to the non-represented ones. But essentially, if they played their cards right, they could, every other higher anniversary date, could be paid off for 80 hours of unused vacation time. In effect, every other year, they could get an extra paycheck. That's what's provided. To do that, they would have to roll over, they're allowed to roll up a maximum of 5 days, which is 40 hours. They're allowed to roll up a maximum of 40 hours on their anniversary date in a year. And then that's the maximum they can roll over. So if they have 5, they can roll that over. And then it says in a year, if you hit the maximum accrual, which is defined as 80 hours, you can then receive that payoff. So to get a payoff, they would have to first have a rollover of a full 5 hours, because that's the most that can accrue, that could roll over in a year.
And 5 days.
What?
5 days.
I'm sorry. 40 hours. We have converted all our analysis to hours. But yes, you're right. In the contract it says 5 days, but it's 40 hours what it is. And if they do that, and then in that same year end up with 80 hours of unused time, they can then get a pay of 80 hours.
How many hours do they get a year? Or how many days?
Well, there's a schedule. Okay. As you get farther into it, it maxes starting at 16 years or 15 years, one of those two. They would accrue on their anniversary date 200 hours.
25 days.
Yes,
Right.
25 days, which is fairly substantial. And so they would accrue that. And then at the if they had a payoff of 80 hours, and then they accrued 200 hours, and then if at the end of that period they had at least 40 hours, they could roll that over into the next one.
Right.
And then if they had...
How many employees do we have doing this?
In the Circuit Court Association, I believe we have 12, 13, 11, 15.
So is this,
So what you gonna change it?
Well, that's what the rule provides for. What has happened, and again, this has gone on for some time, they have every year rolled over, if they have it, they might not have it. They have rolled over 80 hours and then were paid for all unused hours above the 80, and that was every year. But that practice has gone on for quite a while. So you have employees who have been in that practice. So you see that there's a blank spot down there for the date. I think we would probably be looking to make this effective at the late summer or early fall at some point. And until that time, for the people who had anniversary dates in the interim, they could do the process that they've been doing. But we do have to bring it into.
Okay, so
the reason this is presented to you tonight,
right,
is because there are some anniversary dates coming up. If this is approved, then we can do that. We can allow that transitional period and have it take effect like in the fall. Once everybody's had a chance to burn off excessive vacation hours in accordance with their expectations. If we don't do this, then I'm in the spot of having to enforce the contract as it is. When somebody comes up for it, like if somebody comes up for their anniversary date now, we have maybe, what, 6, 7 people
Yeah,
coming up in the next.
So how did, I guess my question is, how did this come to light? Is it from you guys? Is it Mike discovered
Well,
this?
let me say this. In the past, if you remember, we didn't have an administrator, and we didn't do we didn't do any human resources items here. They were done at the county clerk's office. This goes back a couple years. County clerk, frankly, did not keep any records of, or regular records of.
Can I interject there, because
What?
that's not accurate, Mike. I'm not gonna place blame on the past county
I'm
clerk,
not.
it's the individual departments. The individual departments, what they were doing is they were collecting these hours, and they were not letting the county clerk know that. It was who was keeping track of the payroll hours. So the county clerk had no idea.
Chrissy, I know that.
I'm just saying.
No,
Okay, so-
I'm not saying, but I'm saying that at some point, it came for payment.
Yeah, we had to turn it in every year to
Yes,
the county
and then it was
clerk, but the departments weren't being honest in what they were giving.
I agree.
Okay, so-
And I don't mean to disparage
Yeah, I just wanted to make that.
I'm just saying that you need to know that.
So was this, so what's happening, so they were getting paychecks they were getting that extra paycheck every year instead of every other year? Is that what's
Yes.
happening?
Well, and the amount, the potential liability, and I didn't look into the history of what was being paid or anything like that. For one thing, it might be hard to find. But if you want an example of what could happen, right now, every other year, if you paid off 80 hours, let's say a person says, I'm gonna design this to maximize the money, which you're entitled to do under contract.
And we're not trying to change that,
No. But right now, if you were to do that, the maximum would be every other year, cashing out 80 hours. Roughly, if you figure where our pay scales are going, say at $20, that would be $1,600. If it were $25 an hour, you're talking about $2,000. Basically, it's an extra paycheck every other year.
Right.
So if you cut that in half to annualize it, it'd be either $800 to $1,000 per year, even though it actually occurred every other year. If you had somebody who had reached the maximum, and they would come close as they approach that, but by 16 years, where they're collecting $200, doing what they're doing now, if they rolled over 80 hours and collected 200 hours and didn't take vacations, now they might have used sick time or some personal leave, but didn't take vacations. You're talking every year $4,000 to $5,000 per individual, or for a person who collects 200 hours. So
I never did that. I mean, we were only allowed to turn in.
I'm not saying that.
So,
80 hours.
so,
The regular employees in the county, they can't do that, none of them can. They
well, the
can't-
non-represented ones cannot, that's true, but that's neither here nor there. This is in their contract. If something's wrong with that needs to be taken on at contract negotiation.
To change too.
So if I may ask a couple quick clarifying
Yeah.
questions, just so I understand this. When was the last collective bargaining agreement signed that we're talking about?
Yeah, just on.
Yeah, well, right. They had, the actual contract that they're working under has an ending date of December 2017, but it was reopened, I believe strictly for the purposes of wage adjustment. Because they're still working off that, we're still working off that contract.
How long has this practice been occurring?
But that item hasn't
A
changed.
long time. The current one, a long.
So-
has a TA? Yeah, it's,
The TA was a month.
so we're not trying to take this away.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. All those changes a month.
They're
Yes, that's
trying
all I'm
to-
saying.
So where
This
people
is
have
the
to
same.
use
Yes.
their time so that they cannot be cashing in all the time.
So basically, they've been taking 80 and carrying forward the contract.
No, they've been carrying over 80, and anything in excess of 80, they could be paid. So if you got a guy if you have a person that comes in or, you know, if they're in the first few years of employment, they, you know, they
No,
only.
I understand that, it's just half though, it's basically double of what the contract language.
Correct.
It could be-
You're
it
allowed
could
to
be-
carry 80 hours every year. That's the way it was interpreted to me when I started, didn't look at the contract.
Right. And then get paid for the rest.
To have it at bank, you had to have your bank full.
Yes.
Your
Right,
bank was
right,
up
right,
to
right.
80 hours. And you could not do any kind of cashing out unless you had your bank full.
Right, which you then could carry over,
Right.
and then it would come to payout. Like I said, a person receiving
So-
$200.
So this is the long-standing practice,
It's-
we're trying to update it to reflect the actual language that was agreed to, and we want
Yes.
to provide some grace period for these
So-
individuals.
I have to point out,
Yes.
it's much more than double. It
So-
could be as much as,
The problem
5 times as much.
is that we have a small staff, right?
Right.
So, for instance, last year, and there's a provision in the contract that covers this, but for instance, last year, we had a double homicide trial where our court reporter, she started recording, she had a pre-planned, prepaid vacation.
Chrissy,
But
she's
not
not
taken.
in the union anymore.
She was, though.
But that's not.
Yes,
Okay.
before she was Judge Clarkson. That's-
Yes, and we'll address that.
So, long-term employees we don't necessarily have that on the third floor anymore because we have fairly new staff.
Right.
But yes, in the past.
Or in your office.
Oh, yeah, no one has.
Correct.
It's
Right.
my office.
Your office, okay.
So,
So-
long-term employees, this has been the practice, so this is what they've come to rely upon. Now, we met with Mike, we've come to an agreement that
We meaning,
Judge Clarkson, myself, Christy Bray, and Mike all met. Jill was not a part of that meeting. We've since went back and talked to our staff. And Judge Clarkson, as the employer, agrees that the provisions of the contract need to be followed. But the problem is, and Mike has recognized this, that we have people who have come to rely on this.
and then that's my question.
We need to make sure that our employees are taken care of in that aspect. So for those, but we also have to have an effective date, like Mike said. I agree with that. So,
Yeah, we've let that, we
Yes.
can add that. That's
so
what I'm saying.
that's what's up in the air right now. I mean, we've all talked to our staff and long-term employees who,
And
they understand.
They all
We
get
gotta
this,
take
they
our vacation
understand.
time. You can roll over the 80 hours. Every 2 years you can get a payout if you've rolled it over. And we're working on making sure vacation schedules.
So we're trying to sunset the practice.
Yes,
That's right.
but it's just, we just have to come up with a effective date so that long-term employees who have
Sure.
come to rely on this aren't
Because some of
getting-
those employees have made financial decisions
Yes.
or plans.
Yes.
So what is the date? We're
So
looking-
here's
let's
what
do
it is.
quick here.
Commissioner.
All right.
We'll put that, like I said, it's gonna be either late summer or early fall.
And they're agreeable to
That-
this. I
yes,
concur with
that-
the
that will
judge. We
allow
follow
people
the
to burn
contract
up-
language.
To burn vacation time.
They're agreeable, courts are agreeable, this is
Yes.
a good solution for everyone.
I think we just need, we'll go, this was late, we just got this
Yes.
late, so we just wanna
Okay.
make sure we, if there's.
This is what
clarifications or
this is what we're asking for. The problem is this: if we don't get approval for Commissioner Bartz to sign off on it when we have a finished one, because it's not going to take effect anyway until Judge Clarkson and Ms. Bruce sign it, and the Board of Commissioners. The Board of Commissioners have to approve it. What you see, though, in substance, is that there's also going to be a provision that explains Section 8, which has to do with, to the extent a previously scheduled vacation is canceled. There's a provision there, and that's part of it, that's fine. That's done at the discretion of the court. And then nothing here affects Section 6, which has to do with payouts at the end.
All
But
I see is 3 sections. Do I not have everything? Or when you say section, when you're referring to.
well, I'm sorry, I'm talking about the sections in the Article 17 of the collective bargaining agreement. Okay. So we'll be adding that. We'll be putting the date in, which, as I indicated, is either going to be in. But the problem is, if we don't do this, if we don't agree to this, then before we have our next meeting, there are several people who are coming up on their retirement. And
you know, under the Budgeting and Accounting Act, I can't authorize payments in excess of what's been approved by the Board of Commissioners. So I'm asking that the Board of Commissioners,
So what we need to sit down and
We're just
figure out.
approving a draft at this
But we
point
need to
anyway, we're
Yes.
gonna get a final.
but that substance that you see there, that procedure
We need to decide.
from,
Yeah, but you said you wanted to tighten stuff up.
what you see there is where, as far as the justifications
Tighten up the time.
He said 6 cents.
and the sections 1 through,
It's too bad.
2,
6 months.
F, and then 3, that's gonna stay there. Otherwise, other than a date to be added, and other
What date are
than,
you recommending, Mike?
we'll look at the dates of the people upcoming.
Okay.
And,
Say-
I'm thinking October 1st, but we'll see what,
So that's what.
It's-
it'll probably be October 1st or November
That's,
1st.
that's 6 months.
You want to give plenty of time for people who have accumulated a lot of
Right,
hours
right.
to use their vacation time. So
I-
they
I
don't
would
have an
suggest-
unnecessary loss.
I would just suggest that we don't go over 6 months.
Well, October 1st would be,
Would October 1st be 6 months?
well,
Or
yeah, that'd be 6.
from here?
We're 4/1, that would be
Well-
10/1.
A little bit before.
I suspect it'll be October 1st or November 1st. Is that okay with the commission?
I would go for October 1st.
Well, I just wanna make sure.
Do you think
we're not
October
gonna
1st would
have
be? All right.
any of your employees like coming here next month screaming like, what the heck have we done? They've all been spoke to, they all understand it.
If we don't do it, we'll lose time.
Right.
Well,
Or
no,
I have to take
no, I
financial
understand that,
vacation
no.
this summer and then I
No.
don't get.
I
my
understand
job
that, I
done.
understand the urgency.
Yeah.
But, for clarification, all these employees have been talked to, it's all been explained to them,
Yes,
they're all okay with this.
Yeah.
If provided a certain amount of time.
yes, if that, if there
So
is
we're gonna
a,
write October 1st on this line item number 3 in this blank spot. We're gonna put October 1st.
You can do that, but like I said, there's also, I'm going to do a clarification of section 8. Just to make it clear that that section applies to the extent that somebody previously scheduled a vacation and then the court, for its needs, had to cancel it, which is.
Canceled by the employer, it's understood.
So you're asking us to approve this draft as written to make it workable at this point, but we're still gonna get a final to be approved.
Commissioner Bartz will get a final
Okay.
when Judge Clarkson and Ms. Bruce do it. It will happen fairly soon. When is the next person up?
in April, she's.
It's
she's
in April.
So
we-
So we will,
before
that
our
will be
next
moving
meeting,
very fast.
before our main meetings, he's gonna be signing this.
Yes.
So are we looking
But-
for a motion to give the chair the authority to sign on behalf of the county commission
So
once the
moved.
details are worked out?
I'll make that motion.
I'll support
I wrote in
that.
October 1st on mine.
Yes, my assumption is it will be October 1st with other details to be worked out.
If the commissioners have said October 1st, that's what's going on.
Jeff, Judge Clarkson has not had an opportunity to review this document, that's why I'm here tonight, because
Yeah.
it was late. So I think the bottom line is just if there has to be some clarification in here, I mean, I think we all agree what needs to happen, but there may be some language that needs to be changed.
Right, this
after-
is a
yes,
draft.
Yes.
So we're gonna put October
But
1st
he
in.
is
And
aware,
we're
It
able
can be
to,
pending.
and he's been involved in these meetings.
Judge Clarkson?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So this, we're gonna put October 1st in, this is a draft, if I have to make some minor changes.
And Commissioner Bartz could still decline to sign it, just like Judge Clarkson.
Yes,
So,
yes.
Okay, so.
but
If it comes back to me and it's, January or something, then, I might not read it.
At this
So
point,
now
we're
I'm
looking at
sitting back down with my.
I think we're all agreeable, Judge.
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
Is this occurring in other departments, this practice? It sounds like it
We
has
don't know,
been.
do we?
this prompted me to check some contracts. This is the way the circuit court was written. AFSCME, I haven't fully looked at yet. The probate court employees contract.
This actually is fairly well written, most of the contract is here. The probate court one is much more roughly written. But their practice is that no rollovers, but it's solely at the discretion of the chief judge. He can pay off all unused annual leave every year.
Yeah, so-
Well, wait, let me finish. But that's the chief judge. Right now, the chief judge is Clarkson. I suspect that he won't
blank check to prove it, but maybe I'm wrong. But that only applies to the probate court employees. If he were to ask me, and I don't, if he were to ask me, I would suggest if he wanted to make it so similar to what the circuit court employees got, he could authorize 40 hours, up to 40 hours of payment per year, per anniversary date, and then would more or less match up to them getting 80 hours every other one, if they.
Mike, I guess what I'm trying to get to is we have agreements, bargaining, collective
Yes.
bargaining agreements. I want to make sure that we're adhering to the language of those agreements.
That's what this is about.
What they say and what they, that was before our time. We need to adhere to those agreements. My question is there anyone else that's not complying, other departments that aren't complying with collective bargaining agreements, regardless of what they say?
The probate court, to the extent the chief judge has signed off on it, that would be compliant.
Okay.
I mean, that's.
If I could just ask you to report back, I just want to make sure we're not experiencing.
I think one of the things Mike's saying is he's been on the job a month. This is the first one. I think he is going to be reviewing all this.
Perfect.
But 4 years, 5 years without an administrator or county coordinator, this is yet another example of what happens.
I agree fully. I just want to make sure we're all pulling in the same direction.
I will tell you this, I haven't taken and read this whole thing. There may be something come up where we get now we get requests over here. We didn't get that before. So when I was presented with a request, one that has been settled, I was like, wait a minute, what? And that led me to look at it, and then I realized we were not adhering to the practices in the contract. So that's what this is about. Now, there may be other things in this contract that don't come to light because I don't know. I didn't know until I got we got requested.
No, I don't expect you to know.
I guess Mark and I are asking that we look at everything. Everything needs to be looked at.
Yeah, but I don't always know that it's not being followed. That's the difference, until something comes up.
So you have, just to interject here, Chairman Bartz opened the motion, Commissioner McMaster supported it, so now you just have to, whether you're accepting.
This draft.
Yes.
And I should add that he made the motion on that. What we have discussed, it would have been an amended motion to have him.
Because of what Mark said.
To approve it after let Chairman Bartz approve it after it has been approved by the others. But that is going to have to happen quickly. Anyway, that's going to happen with a
I thought the motion delegated authority to our chair to sign.
Yeah, I think we're good at that.
Thank you.
It delegates the authority for me to sign or not sign.
Yes, and with that to indicate Board of Commissioners approval. They have approved it in substance. If there's a slight change in form, I will inform you if it changes the substance.
Okay.
Roll call vote, please.
Hold on, please. Okay, so this is now being an amended motion. Who made that motion? Was it Commissioner Cascarelli?
He did the amended one.
Okay. And who seconded that?
I'll do it.
And it is to give you, Chairman Bartz, the authority to sign a final
Document.
Okay.
With the planned execution date of October 1st.
But it also allows
Or
for this to be implemented, right? This vote can be.
Upon those, well, and the county clerks too, I should add. County clerks is a sign
She's on the second
of the
page.
contract.
And with date of implementation. Right? We're doing roll call.
Please.
Okay, Commissioner Marks is excused. Commissioner Holzhausen, do you follow all that?
No, I'm confused.
Okay, so
I
This gives-
vote no, so
okay.
I
Commissioner
don't understand this stuff.
Root is excused. Commissioner McMaster,
Yes.
Commissioner Cascarelli.
Yes.
Commissioner Brough,
Yes.
Chairman Bartz.
Yes.
Okay.
If I may just say thank you, Mike, for your hard work. I didn't mean to assume that you'd be well-versed in all the collective bargaining agreements. Prospectively, that if you put that on your list, that we make sure we follow up and review them and become familiar with them, and in practice, make sure we're executing on the language of those agreements.
This is just another thing that
Thank you.
it goes along with what happened at the front of the court. You know, I don't sit here as chairman or just as a board member and want to put blame or point fingers on anybody doing anything wrong. Things have gotten messed up, and we just need to straighten them out.
Fix it and move on.
Make our county family well again.
And just an observation, you know, some of the blowback about hiring a county coordinator, because what do we need to spend the money on for? And I don't think people fully appreciate how much money it's costing.
I've said
Not
that.
to-
I've said that
This
from day
this
one.
alone
You know.
could easily pay for the cost, am I
I said
right?
that from day one.
Over period of years.
Moving on.
Thank you.
Item B, I would like to make a motion to accept the resignation of Michael Haredine as elected township official, representative on the 911 board.
Support.
Who did that? Commissioner, okay, sorry.
So motion and support to accept his resignation as an elected official on the 911 board. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Another opportunity for the public to address the board.
Wait, I'm sorry. There was a letter in here from Kay Nichols regarding her application to serve on the 911 board, and we wondered if we want to go ahead and take that up right now.
What? Make the motion.
So I would move to appoint Kay Nichols to the 911 board service, 911 board to serve the residents of the county in light of the recent resignation.
We need a what, 2/3 vote to put this onto?
Yeah, actually, to put that on the agenda, you need a 2/3 vote to add it to the agenda.
Okay, let me back
So
up.
we need
I
to-
would move to add the appointment of Kay Nichols to tonight's agenda.
Support.
Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Commissioner Holzhausen,
Yes.
Commissioner Root is excused, Commissioner McMaster,
Yes.
Commissioner Cascarelli,
Yes.
Commissioner Brough,
Yes.
Commissioner Marks is excused, Chairman Barnes.
Yes. Motion carries.
Thank you, gentlemen, for allowing me to add that to tonight's agenda. I would therefore move to appoint Kay Nichols to the 911 board service.
Support.
Motion and support. Is there any discussion?
Excellent choice, I think.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Once again, opportunity for the public.
We got any public vote?
No. 7 o'clock. Any motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, so I have a question. You talked about union employees, but what if you're not a union employee?